Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of a two-part presentation on the top natural antidepressant remedies. With our lifestyle pillars in place, which we learned about in the first presentation, let's now turn our attention to supplements. There are several compounds that have either been investigated heavily or shown to have a great deal of promise for reducing depression, and that's what we're going to talk about next. First up is saffron. Saffron's a medicinal and culinary spice that has been traded and used throughout Eurasia for thousands of years. It's a mainstay of Middle Eastern cuisine and currently the most expensive spice in the world. Ancient Persians used saffron to treat a variety of ailments, including depression, and modern research has since supported this use, with studies indicating that saffron has a variety of antidepressant actions in the brain. It increases serotonin signaling, it's an antioxidant, it reduces neuroinflammation, and it's neuroprotective. Numerous meta-analyses of clinical trials have reported that 30 milligrams per day of saffron has a potency comparable to routinely prescribed antidepressant drugs, but with less side effects in individuals with mild to moderate depression. To illustrate this point, let's look at the largest of these meta-analyses, which included 11 randomized controlled trials comparing saffron to either placebo or antidepressant medications. As you can see in the graph, saffron reduced levels of depression by an average of 52%, which was more than double the effect of placebos in the studies on the left and was clearly comparable to standard drug therapies in the studies on the right. Saffron is a potent antidepressant herb, able to cut depression in half and rival pharmaceutical drugs through increasing serotonin signaling and protecting the brain from inflammation and oxidative stress. That's the key point. Next up, we're going to talk about Rhodiola Rosea. Rhodiola is a medicinal herb traditionally used for enhancing mental performance and resilience to stress, effects that are due to the numerous ways rhodiola interacts with genes, signaling pathways, and molecular networks within neuronal cells to alter emotional behavior. Specifically, rhodiola acts within the brain as a neuroprotective, cognitive enhancing, and mood stabilizing agent through reducing neuronal cell death and promoting regeneration, functioning as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, facilitating neurotransmission, and regulating several key mediators of the stress response within the hypothalamic pituitary axis. One of the ways these effects manifest is by reducing depression. For example, in adults with mild to moderate depression, 340 milligrams per day of rhodiola cut depression by a third after just 7 weeks, with little additional benefit from taking a higher dose. In another study, combining 310 milligrams per day of rhodiola with 30 milligrams of saffron reduced depressive symptoms by 60% after 6 weeks, causing 70% of the participants to no longer suffer from clinical depression. The key point being, Rhodiola rosea is an adaptogen best known for its ability to increase stress resilience by interacting with genes, signaling pathways, and molecular networks within neuronal cells to alter emotional behavior. And these effects have lent it potent antidepressant effects, particularly when combined with saffron. Next up is uridine monophosphate. Uridine is one of 5 standard nucleosides that make up the nucleic acids of genetic material like DNA and RNA. It is known to pass the blood-brain barrier, and it's involved in several neurologically critical functions. It's required for the synthesis of brain phospholipids, and supplementation increases concentrations of phospholipid precursors in the brains of healthy adults. It plays a role in the formation of brain synapses that are required for learning and communication, and it induces nerve growth and differentiation. While research on uridine's antidepressant effects is still preliminary, it is promising. In a study of bipolar adolescents suffering from depression, supplementation with 1,000 milligrams per day of uridine was associated with a 58% reduction in depression symptoms after just 6 weeks. The key point being, uridine is a necessary component of brain phospholipid synthesis, synapse formation, and nerve growth, with preliminary research suggesting it is able to drastically reduce depression in as little as 1 week. If you're enjoying this content and you want to have all this information at your fingertips, then head over to theenergyblueprint.com/antidepressant-ebook and grab our free ebook. All right, so next up is agmatine sulfate. Agmatine is a neurotransmitter and neuromodulator that has anti-seizure, anti-pain, anti-anxiety, and antidepressant effects. It modulates some of the processes involved in learning and memory, and it interacts with the mechanisms of drug withdrawal. In particular, Agmatine has several unique biological effects within the brain that can help it fend off depression. It blocks NMDA receptors and prevents excitotoxicity. It activates imidazoline receptors that increase beta endorphin secretion. It activates the NRF2 pathway that increases the production of antioxidant enzymes, and it protects mitochondria from oxidative stress and cell death. Collectively, these effects of Agmatine have given it a high therapeutic value for treating neurological disorders and preventing neurodegeneration. Unfortunately, human clinical trials haven't caught up to its vast potential. For example, an analysis of the postmortem brains of individuals who committed suicide found that Agmatine concentrations were 30 to 40% lower than in non-suicidal individuals in all 3 tested brain regions. Yet, to date, only one study exists looking at how Agmatine supplementation impacts depression. And in this pilot study of 2 men and 1 woman with clinical depression and currently in the grip of a major depressive episode, supplementing 2 to 3 grams per day of Agmatine for just under a month, quote, showed total incontrovertible remission of depression, end quote. To put this in perspective, a score of 18 or higher on the Hamilton scale indicates severe depression. And these participants went from a score of 32 at the beginning of the study down to a score of 3 within just 1 month. These effects persisted even when given a drug that completely blocked serotonin signaling, which could have caused a depressive relapse. The patients were so amazed that they actually refused to stop taking Agmatine when the intervention ended, especially in light of the fact that their depressive episodes would historically last for months with standard antidepressant drugs and up for a year if they didn't use any drugs at all. So while preliminary, these findings are almost unbelievable and definitely make Agmatine something to consider for fighting depression. The key point being, Agmatine is a neurotransmitter and neuromodulator that affects numerous processes within the brain to produce nearly unbelievable antidepressant effects. Research on this compound is incredibly preliminary, but it is highly promising. Next up is St. Johns Wort, and it's a plant native to parts of Europe, Asia, and North Africa that has since spread throughout the world. It's one of the most pervasive examples of an herbal remedy used in complementary medicine for the management of depression. It's an herb with several important constituents, such as hypericin and hyperforin, that work to increase neurotransmitter signaling by inhibiting reuptake or by directly binding to its receptor. They reduce neuroinflammation and they inhibit GABA signaling. From a clinical perspective, these antidepressant effects work. Several meta-analyses have found that St. Johns Wort reduces depression with a comparable effectiveness to prescription drugs, but with less side effects. The largest of these meta-studies involved 35 randomized controlled trials lasting a minimum of 1 month and using 300 to 1,200 milligrams per day of St. Johns Wort. Over an average supplementation period of 2 to 3 months, individuals using St. Johns Wort were 50% more likely to respond to treatment than those using a placebo, and 69% more likely to put their depression in remission. Compared to an antidepressant medication, there were no differences in efficacy, but adverse events were less likely to occur. The key point being, St. Johns Wort is an herb with pharmaceutical level antidepressant effects brought about by increasing serotonin signaling, reducing neuroinflammation, and inhibiting GABA signaling. All right, last but not least, EPA and DHA. So most of you are probably familiar with the 2 classes of polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6, which each encompass several fatty acids that play unique roles in our immune system. Omega-3 fatty acids include alpha-linoleic acid, or ALA, and then EPA and DHA, while the omega-6 fatty acids include linoleic acid and arachidonic acid. While a bit oversimplistic, the omega-3 fatty acids support anti-inflammatory processes in the body by creating resolvins and protectins, while the omega-6 fatty acids support inflammatory processes within the body by creating prostaglandins and leukotrienes. Nutritionally, the long-chain omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are what matter, as they are the precursors to important signaling molecules in the immune system. When it comes to the omega-3 fatty acids, it's all the more important to obtain preformed EPA and DHA in the diet because ALA is not efficiently converted into them. Studies of ALA metabolism in healthy young men indicate that approximately 8% of dietary ALA is converted into EPA and less than 4% is converted into DHA, with these values increasing to 21% and 9% in women thanks to the effects of estrogen. So plant-based omega-3 fatty acid sources, which contain only ALA, are not going to be a reliable source of high doses of EPA and DHA, although they can certainly prevent a deficiency. Now, the entire reason EPA and DHA have been investigated for their role in depression is because depression has a strong inflammatory component. Quite a few randomized control trials have been conducted looking at fish oil supplementation as a treatment for major depressive disorder, and meta-analyses of these studies have reported that supplementing with 1 to 6 grams of EPA and DHA does appear to have a significant benefit, especially with higher EPA doses and when used alongside antidepressants. However, meta-analyses cannot account for every little detail, and it has been argued that fish oil really only benefits depressed people who have an insufficient EPA and DHA intake in their diet. Granted, most people in the Western world don't consume a lot of seafood that would supply the EPA and DHA, and it all really takes a little salmon or sardines on a regular basis to do this. So if you don't like supplementation, then try eating more fatty fish. The key point being, EPA and DHA are long-chain omega-3 fatty acids found naturally in seafood that are required for proper anti-inflammatory signaling. Supplementation, particularly with EPA, has been shown to reduce depression, but likely only in those with a low baseline intake of fatty fish and seafood that would supply the EPA and DHA that's being supplemented. And that's it, everyone. The top antidepressant supplements. If you want to learn more about them, along with a ton of information on the 4 lifestyle pillars for mental health, then head over to theenergyblueprint.com/antidepressant-ebook and grab our free ebook. And lastly, I do want to briefly mention that if you're interested in these antidepressant compounds, most of them are contained within UltraBrain, along with numerous other brain-boosting ingredients to take your mood and cognition to the next level. You can grab some at theenergyblueprint.com/UltraBrain. Seriously, just look at what people are saying. Jason, I've tried numerous nootropics and UltraBrain is the best by far. Maureen noticed effects in just 4 days with just a partial dose. Tim is loving the product and says it's much better than Qualia. Beth really loves UltraBrain and is reducing her anxiety and depression after just 1 week. Getty feels and even looks more clear and less tired. So again, if you want to get your bottle, just head to theenergyblueprint.com/UltraBrain.